I'm Gloria Strode and welcome to Straightforward. Today we have our great friend, veteran, serving the community, Dr. Vernon Humphrey. Welcome.
Hi, Gloria.
Good to see you.
It's always good to see you.
I know it's been a while and you've done wonderful, great things since you last visited with us. You're a part of two organizations that's serving blinded veterans.
Yes, ma'am.
And you are the national president.
I'm national president of the Association of Blind Veterans, which is a division of the National Federation of the Blind.
How awesome is that? So share with our audience exactly what those organizations do and how people can be a part of that.
Excuse me. Well, the National Association of Blind Veterans, like I said, is part of the National Federation of the Blind. And anybody can become a member of our organization. It's $5 a year. We have blinded veterans and we have sighted family members. And one of the guys, his father was in the Navy, but he's blind. He grew up blind all his life.
Okay, so family members of veterans can be a part of this.
Yes.
Okay.
The Blinded Veterans Association, I think, has an auxiliary, but
okay.
the NABV doesn't have one, but they can join as members. And it's a great they're both great organizations. They basically strive to improve the lives of people, blinded veterans. Last week I had a meeting at the National Infantry Museum on increasing the accessibility for the visually impaired. There's a lot that a blind person goes to the museum and they can't see. You know, the displays are there,
right?
But what is it?
Exactly.
And even if you have somebody like your grandchild describing it to you, it's like, well, there's a box by the bed. No, that's a Foot Locker.
Right, right.
So we talked to them about increasing the accessibility, and we're taking some steps to that. Actually, the National Association of Blind Veterans is donating a bronze plaque to the NIM that's an American flag. And it's raised letters in text where you can read the Pledge of Allegiance, but it also has Braille on there.
Really?
And I talked to them. We're going to locate it about 35 inches high. And to me, when I first heard that, I thought it was kind of low. But they said no. And the person talking to me about it said, no, wheelchair access, bud. You got to think about that too.
Right, you got to think about the people in wheelchairs.
And it's like, wow, I didn't even think about. I think about blind all the time, but sometimes I don't think about the other disabilities that often go with blind.
Right. And so you've been working very hard in the community for many years for those with disabilities. And of course, it's a labor of love. You're not getting a 6-digit income from doing that.
Not even getting a 2-digit income.
Well, no, I mean, and that's really what servant leadership is all about.
Right.
You know,
Service before self.
Service before self. I love that, Dr. Humphrey. So you were at the National Infantry Museum.
Right.
And you were trying to make sure that it was more user-friendly for those that are visually impaired.
Right.
Right. And so how are you going to add additional things? Will your organization be doing fundraising, or you just asking other organizations to support so it can become more and more user-friendly?
Well, right now we just had our initial meeting. To find out where we can go, because some things you could do like more tactile, more touch. But then if you have an artifact that everybody touches, it wears it out.
Exactly.
And more light. More light is great for the people with limited
visual impairment. Because it is dim in there. It is kind of dim.
But if you have more light, it degrades the displays as well. So some of the things that we spoke about was like having a special time set up that could. You'd set it up ahead of time, and people with visual impairments could come in at that time and maybe have higher lights, or maybe have more items on display for them to touch. This is all just conversation so far. We haven't made any.
It's in the developmental stages.
Right, definitely.
Okay.
We haven't made any decisions, or should I say, they haven't made any decisions. I just had the honor to go to talk to them.
No, but you're a subject matter expert because you live it.
I am, and so thankfully they said they wanted me to come back to more meetings and discuss more. Money is definitely a factor. How, because the National Infantry Museum is not funded by Fort Benning. A lot of people think it is.
Yes.
It's a 501c3, so.
It's a nonprofit.
It's a nonprofit.
So for those that want to support our veterans that have blind or visual issues, they can write a big check.
They definitely can.
And it's tax deductible.
They definitely can, and it is tax deductible, and I'm sure that the General would be more than happy to to take that check.
Right.
That's one thing that he and I discussed, or the group of us discussed, was, and part of the homework they gave me was, see if you can find some grants.
Okay.
And so I'm looking at finding some grants maybe to help us along. There's other things that can be done. One thing that the visually impaired run into is the kiosks. Like the ATM has them, but it has Braille on them and has a place you can plug in.
Right.
But if there's a kiosk you check into at the Veterans Administration, and there's no Braille, there's no nothing.
Really?
You can't see what you're doing, and they have some audio cues on some of them.
Right.
But somebody was telling me one VA clinic turned the sound off because it bothered the other patients in the waiting room. But
well, if there's a person with PTSD, I could understand.
Yeah,
it might be too much stimulation on and on and on.
It may be,
but that's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
McDonald's has kiosks. You go in there, but it's not visually impaired friendly. So a lot of the visual impaired community are running into brick walls when things are getting more technical, and we're having all these kiosks and all this other stuff.
Right.
Because my wife and I were at McDonald's the other day, and so I'm this, and she said it's down here, and I had to go down here. And
exactly.
If I hadn't had my sighted guide with me, then I'd have never ordered a meal at McDonald's.
Right. So Brenda, the fabulous Brenda,
yes, ma'am,
one of my new heroes, has been on this journey for a very long time.
Yes, she has.
And so you served in the military. When did your career start?
I started in 1979.
Wow.
I'm married. I met Brenda in 82 when we got married. And in 92, they told me I was blind.
Really?
And I looked at her and said, if you ever needed a reason to leave, you got one? And she said, how dare you think that little of me?
Exactly.
And quite a few
she's
other
a woman
things.
of substance.
Quite a few other things that I can't really say on the air. But she's been...
She's been on that journey.
Yeah, I was driving.
Yeah.
You almost hit that. No, I didn't. You got close. No, I didn't. And then when the doctor told me I was blind, I said, you mean I got to admit to her she was right?
Right? Oh, I know.
That's one of the hardest things for a man to do.
I know, to admit his wife was right. But yeah, she helped with your military career.
Oh, definitely.
It's probably one of the hardest jobs, is being the spouse.
It is.
And then to accept all of the other challenges that came along the way. We have to commend the spouses that do that.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
We do.
My kids would not be the people they are if it wasn't for her raising them, because I was gone a lot.
Exactly. Well, what we're going to do now, Dr. Humphrey, go to our first break to our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay. We'll be right back after word from some of our sponsors. Straightforward is brought to you by Chalk by Quincy introduces Excellence Redefined, timepieces of the finest technology, luxury, and class with tons of style at chalklifestyle.com. Renal Associates, LLC, a team of physicians dedicated to excellent kidney care with 5 convenient locations to serve you: Stark Avenue, Columbus; Bradley Park Drive, Columbus; Lafayette Parkway, LaGrange; West Washington Street, Eufaula; and Spring Street in Warm Springs. Vanessa Jackson's District 3 Successful Scholars Program, supporting students in achieving academic excellence, outstanding citizenship, positive social and cultural growth, believing in success for kids. Dr. Sheikha Shaw Family Medicine, connecting your health to your future. Dr. Shaw prides herself in providing compassionate health care and establishing long-lasting relationships. Conveniently located at 2827 Warm Springs Road, Suite 3B. Call her today at 706-324-4177.
Walmart's reason for supporting Thurgood Marshall College Fund is simple. We like to win. And we have been given a lot of exposure to some incredible talent. And we also believe that it's a part of our responsibility to the community to give back. This is a great opportunity to do both. It's been a wonderful experience for us through the years. We've appreciated our partnership. We believe in return on investment, and we have definitely had a remarkable return.
History is important because it shows where you're coming from and where you're going. Type 2 diabetes is something that runs in my family, which means I'm at risk. In fact, 1 in 3 American adults are at risk for developing type 2 diabetes. And knowing this, if I do nothing, that family history becomes my family's future. And my family is too important to me for that. Take the risk factor assessment today at AskScreenNo.com.
I'm Drew Brees, and being a dad means the world to me. I'm Drew Brees, and being a dad means the world to me. And one of the most important things any parent can do is make sure their kids get active at least 60 minutes each day. Studies show that physical activity not only helps kids stay healthy, it can enhance important skills like concentration and problem solving, which can improve academic performance. This means physical activity can help your kids in the most important game of all, life.
Welcome back to Straightforward. I'm continuing my conversation with the great Dr. Vernon Humphreys. I'm so happy to see you. You can't stay away so long. I know you're busy because I follow you on social media, not just your work with the veterans, because you're always doing that, but also you are working at CSU,
yes,
teaching
ma'am.
some classes. So share with us all the other great things you're doing to contribute to the community.
Well, I teach 2 classes at CSU as an adjunct. Public speaking, to me, is one of the best classes to teach because I get students that I can't talk in front of people. I say, yeah, you can.
Sure you can.
Convince them to believe in themselves. That's a wonderful thing. I'm also teaching an interethnic communication class online.
Ethnic, really?
Which I prefer teaching in class as opposed to online, but I force the students to have conversations from their ethnic perspective.
Wow.
And it opens the eyes to a lot of them about, well, I didn't, realize this, or I didn't realize that, and
right.
that type of stuff. And
putting the shoe on the other foot
yes.
in some situations.
Yeah, and in class, I like to make them sit in a circle and talk. And at first, they're real guarded, but after that, they open up and they learn each other's perspectives, which is, to me, the only way that you're gonna break down barriers is
right.
to be willing to listen to the other side.
Right.
You don't have to agree, but you've got to listen.
Right, and then you have to agree to disagree.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that you're enemies.
Right.
And I think that's what has happened with us at the national level.
I think it has.
We just think if people disagree with us, they automatically become an enemy, but you don't always agree with your family members or your spouse.
Right.
And so...
No, I always agree with my spouse.
She's trained you well in all those years. But what was the name of the class again?
Interethnic communication.
Okay, is it an elective or is it required?
It's an elective.
Oh, okay, so we really need to push that.
Right, well, it's one of the, it's in the communication degree field. And it's not one of the required ones in the degree field, but I think there's 3 or 4, and they have to take, if there's 4, they have to take 3. If there's 3, they have to take 2. Don't remember exactly.
Okay.
And then I start teaching at CVCC in October. I'll be teaching a public speaking class there.
Wonderful.
And I'm a member of the local Columbus Rotary.
Are you really?
Yes, ma'am. Great group of people. Wonderful. When I left the Army, one thing that I missed was the camaraderie.
Yes.
In the civilian
it's very
sector,
different.
yeah,
It is very different.
They don't quite have it, and understandably, they have to look after themselves and to get forward and da-da-da-da. Whereas in the military, you had to look after each other.
Exactly.
And Rotary has given me that camaraderie. I left for a little while for financial reasons, but when I had to go back, I told my wife, I said, we got to make it. I got to go back.
Right.
Because I missed the camaraderie of the local Rotary.
Right.
Because they take care of one
another. It filled that void from that
Yeah.
military life. People didn't understand that when you lived in quarters, it's really a village.
Yeah.
And when the spouses are deployed, you have to depend on each other, and I really miss that part, even in the civilian world,
Right.
where at one time in life, your community where you grew up was really your village.
Yeah.
We took care of each other. We looked out for each other. It wasn't them against us.
Right.
I mean, and we're on this planet. We all have to learn how to live and get along,
Yeah.
And just because we disagree doesn't mean that we're enemies.
No.
Right. And so those are the things you're able to talk about in that class at CSU.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So before that, you served on another board for those with disabilities.
Right.
Right. And so what board was that?
That was the Disability Service Center. We disbanded about 2 years ago, I guess it was. The biggest problem with that was we were a generic disability center.
Okay.
And finding funding, I could find funding if it was blind specific, or I could find funding if it was autism specific, or I could find
Right.
funding if it was
The
traumatic
umbrella
brain
was
injury.
too broad.
Right.
Right.
We took anybody and we helped them everywhere we could. But finding funding for a generic disability organization was next to impossible.
Right.
And so we felt
Even when you're trying to write the grants.
right.
Yeah, you got to have some very specific things with grant writing.
Right.
Right. And people that have maybe never have written a grant, they don't understand that.
No, they
There are
don't.
certain boxes you have to check when you're trying to compete, because you're not the only person competing for the money.
No, I got a grant. It was a small grant. It was a $500 grant from the AER-BVI, which is the Association for Educators and Rehabilitators of Blinded and Visually Impaired. And I taught classes for people to resume writing
Really?
and interview skills.
Okay.
And because a lot of people with disabilities didn't have the social interaction that we normally get.
Exactly.
And I hate to use the term normally, but
Whatever normal is.
yeah.
Right.
But
we routinely.
we
yes.
routinely get, and a lot of disabled people don't get that interaction. And when I wrote the grant, I could only give the class to blinded and visually impaired. And so it's like, it's the same information, it just, I can't take, no, it has to be, so I had to give a class specifically.
It was earmarked
Right.
specifically for that.
For the blinded and visually, and I can understand it to a degree, but if I can teach 20 people,
Right.
but I can get 5 that are blind,
Right.
why not take another 15? And,
Right. Just fill the
and-
classroom up. Right.
But the organizations that dole out the money, they earmark it for certain things, and you have to abide by their rules, or you don't get the money.
Okay.
So I developed the class, taught it to them, and then we gave it another, I think, 6 times at Disability Service Center. And we haven't had any disability. We just did it without a grant because we couldn't get funding for a generic thing.
Wow, that's unfortunate. And we have a lot of corporations in the community, and hopefully with what you're doing with the National Infantry Museum, because it is a nonprofit, then they will write some checks, because you can write it off.
Right.
You know, and our veterans we're using the restaurants and all of that, and it really should be user friendly.
Right.
Because we have a very large veteran population here in Muskogee County, and I've had Dr. Linda Boyle from CAVIS, who's the director, to come over, and of course she oversees Montgomery, Tuskegee, Fort Benning, and then Columbus.
Right.
And she's very concerned.
Right.
But when we have people like you, boots on the ground, that's really trying to help the next veteran, we have to help you figure out a way to get money to support all of those important things that you see up close and personal. We can't always wait for the federal government.
No.
Right.
Definitely, the federal government is not an option in most cases anymore. And neither is, unfortunately, state or city government. They're all strapped as much as they can be, and we have to pull together as a community. And like you mentioned earlier, you know, we were a community, we were a village.
Right.
You know, we have to pull together as a village. And it's more than Muskogee County. I mean, I live out in Marion County.
I know, you live on an estate.
No.
11 acres. In the city, we get a lot,
Yeah.
LOT, right. So you live on an estate, but you've earned that in your military career to be able to go out and live in a peaceful environment, yeah. And so you're serving in the Chattahoochee Valley area.
Yes,
which we
Chattahoochee
know
Valley is what we've got to take care of. But you know, a lot of people distinguish between Alabama and Georgia. It's
No.
like, no, there's enough bridges across the river that.
Exactly. We
Yeah.
can stand downtown Columbus and look in Phoenix City. I always tell them that. Okay, so what we're going to do, Dr. Humphrey, go to our final break, and we'll be right back.
All right.
Okay, we'll be right back after word from some of our sponsors. Straightforward is brought to you by Warrior Outreach. Contact Command Sergeant Major Retired Sam Rhodes or Kathy Rhodes. The Hugel Foundation, enriching the community through Christian music support, community outreach, and the Georgia Through Photography Project. For more information, call B at 706-568-6431. Progressive Funeral Home, family owned and operated since 1952. The George Ford legacy of high standards continues today in the compassionate and professional services provided. A touch of dignity for those who care. Progressive Funeral Home, 4235 St. Mary's Road, trusted by generations. East Alabama Endocrinology, educating and caring for those living with diabetes in Alabama and Georgia. 1400 Bradley Lake Boulevard, 3320 Skyway Drive, Suite 602, Opelika. Take charge of diabetes and live your best life. State Senator Ed Harbison, serving the citizens of Georgia's 15th Senatorial District,
and on the front line for veterans every day.
History is important because it shows where you're coming from and where you're going. Type 2 diabetes is something that runs in my family, which means I'm at risk. In fact, 1 in 3 American adults are at risk for developing type 2 diabetes. And knowing this, if I do nothing, that family history becomes my family's future. And my family is too important to me for that. Take the risk factor assessment today at AskScreenKnow.com.
Walmart's reason for supporting Thurgood Marshall College Fund is simple. We like to win. And we have been given a lot of exposure to some incredible talent. And we also believe that it's a part of our responsibility to the community to give back. This is a great opportunity to do both. It's been a wonderful experience for us through the years. We've appreciated our partnership. We believe in return on investment, and we have definitely had a remarkable return.
Hi, I'm Bo Pelini. Please join the fight to put an end to homelessness among our military vets.
You can find them on a street corner, in a homeless shelter. Veterans who served America in her time of need. Now, they need your help. The Letter Winners Challenge is dedicated to ending homelessness among our veterans.
Even one homeless vet is one too many for me.
To learn how you can help, log on to thehomelessvetsproject.org.
Welcome back to Straightforward. I'm continuing my conversation with the awesome veteran leader, Dr. Vernon Humphrey. I tell you, I am one of your cheerleaders because over the years I've watched you genuinely work. See, sometimes people work to check their resume, but you've genuinely worked on behalf of veterans. And I think we have to, as a community, do a better job of taking care of the people that sacrifice so that we can have the pleasures that we live with right now.
Yeah.
Freedom is not free.
No.
And your family, like you said, all those years that you were active duty, Brenda took care of the children, she held the house down, so you had a home to come back to.
That's right.
That wasn't always the case. Sometimes people went away and came back, they didn't have a family anymore.
No, they didn't.
People moved on. So that's why you work so hard in the community trying to make a difference. When we went to the break, we were kind of kicking around some local organizations, corporations that you might be able to write a proposal to ask for money to support not Dr. Vernon Humphrey, but our blinded veterans and those others with disabilities. So are you going to be really working on that? Should I send you a list of people who I think you should beg for money?
You can send me a list and I will beg and grovel. To be honest with you, there's a lot of wonderful corporate sponsors already in Columbus. They do a lot.
And they're good corporate citizens.
One of my favorites, Scott Restmeyer in the Midnight Run. You know, my daughter and I have run the Midnight Run for 7 years in a row.
I saw you.
We're not fast, but we finish.
Exactly.
You know?
And the race is what? Not given to the swiftest, but what, that one that endures to the end. So I saw you. I saw you on social media.
And it's great. And Scott, you know, they raise that money to help the visually impaired community, and he does a wonderful job. And there's so many other corporate sponsors that give, and the Rotarians that I work with are always doing something. We planted trees in Columbus and polio. Now they're looking at human trafficking, and the problem with getting involved is sometimes getting involved with too many.
Oh yeah.
You know, and trying to juggle too much.
Yeah, the busy people are the busiest people.
Yeah, and so you know, I got to focus on my students. I got to get the lesson plan done, the classes done. I got to make it productive for them. But I want to go do this. No, I want to go do that. No, I want to do this.
Right.
So generally,
and then you're still a granddaddy. You're the husband. You're the papa. All of that good stuff. And so you got to put it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what you're doing is a very noble thing, and I think that we, the citizens, we have to do better. And if we know something that can support, then people need to be reaching out and saying, maybe you can look at this pot of money.
Right.
Because there are a lot of foundations and trust.
Right.
You know, if you listen to NPR, you always hear about the Carnegies and people like that, you know, and so we might always think of the Bill Gates people, but there were folks that were doing community support projects before Bill Gates, which we appreciate Bill Gates, but there are some very historical foundations and
Right.
organizations that we might need to look at.
Yes, definitely.
And finding that money.
Yeah, I will take any contact you give me, and I'm going to be hitting every one of my contacts
So
up.
anybody else that has what is your email address? Because there are some people that really live in the grant
Right.
world. I met a lady at LaGrange College,
Mm-hmm.
and she writes grants for Georgia Tech and some of the others, and she was teaching on how to. This was at a workshop.
Right.
How other folks could find those resources, and
That's
there
what
is
I
an
gotta
art
take
to
one
it.
of those. Yeah, I got to take one of those
Right
classes.
now, all of them are not good. Some you need to make sure they have a proven track record.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, because you'll hear folks. Well, you've seen the guy on TV with the question mark suit. You just buy the book and then
Yeah.
apply for grants. It doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't work like that.
It works like for him because everybody's paying for his book.
Exactly, and will not guarantee that you will get a grant.
Mm-hmm.
So how can people reach you if they want to support or have you come and speak? Because this is something that we always hear a lot about PTSD, and that is very important.
Right.
But I think that we leave behind some of the other disabilities.
So my email address is Mr._President
Mr. President, I love that. I love it.
at NABV.org, National Association of Blind Veterans.
Okay, say it one more time.
Mr._President
Okay.
at NABV.org.
Okay. And they can find you on social media.
I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter. I think that's about it.
Okay, as Vernon.
Vernon Floyd Humphrey on Facebook, Vernon Humphrey, I think, on LinkedIn and Twitter, or
Okay.
Humphrey.Vernon. I get confused.
You're just so in demand.
Right.
But it is the middle initial, Floyd. Floyd is who we're looking for.
Right.
And are you available to speak? We can't pay you a fee now, but if people want you to come and speak on issues about veterans, are you available?
I'm a communication professor. I'll speak on anything.
Anything, no charge.
They told me at the Rotary I get to introduce a military guest, and they said
Right.
2 minutes. I said, 2 minutes? Is that all? Just oh, him. I can talk about him for 2 minutes. With me, I'm going to need more time.
Exactly. Well, I just want to thank you for your support and over the years, the different causes that you genuinely worked, not just working your resume, it's already been worked. And we're going to be behind you, and when you come up with all those great projects that you want to do in support of this mission, then you come right back here and we're going to get the word out. We're going to do
I
our
definitely
part.
will.
All right.
We'll
Thank
do
you
it.
so much.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure. Tell Tali I said hi.
Absolutely. This has been straightforward. If you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. Until next time, be blessed.